we jump to our next story.
So next here, we're going to jump into an article. This was an article from IndieWire, which talks about basically like what's going on. Like a lot of you remember the whole like net neutrality thing that was pretty big in 2017. I think like the FCC. Well, I think it was like under the Trump
Yeah,
administration, right? Like they sought to undo net
yeah,
neutrality. Which net neutrality in a nutshell, it like kind of control, it's like the rules and regulations of the internet, right? Like who can, like in terms of providers or
yeah.
service providers, right?
So
Like
I can actually speak a little bit to that.
it sets the guidelines
Yeah.
for it. Go ahead.
So basically, in a very and I can just read you part of the article here from IndieWire. They probably can explain it way better than I could. So basically, it's the way that that service providers can dictate like what happens. So it's like if you go to whatever fucking site that you want to go to, right? Fucking, ilikegrannies.com, right? You go to that site.
Good pull. That's my favorite.
That's fair enough. To each his own. So you go to that site, and that is running at basically the same data speeds as any other site that you might go to, whether it's a Netflix or Hulu or whatever the case is, right? They're all operating under the same sort of data caps, right? Or lack thereof, as far as data caps go. But if you get rid of net neutrality, what that basically means is that if you're a service provider, you can kind of dictate what gets what, which now we're dealing with HBO as it relates to AT&T, which I believe AT&T owns HBO somehow. I don't remember when that fucking happened, but um, but I'll give you the gist of the article here. Three senators have accused AT&T of ignoring net neutrality principles by not counting the use of its HBO Max streaming service in its customers' data caps. AT&T data customers who use competing streamers such as Netflix and Disney Plus will have that usage counted against their data caps. And so the telecom giant's decision on Thursday that favors AT&T customers who use its own streaming service, which would have been illegal under the net neutrality rules that Ajit Pai led federal commissions. Federal Communications Commission repealed in 2018. So basically,
Yeah. And the article here goes on. No, I was going to say the article here goes on to give a good example, right? The so 18 AT&T customer with 1 gig of data plan could stream as much HBO Max as they'd like without it contributing to their data cap. But if the customers were to stream content from a rival service like Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, it would contribute to their data cap, and they would be charged additional fees. So like basically like what AT&T is doing here, if you use our shit, we're not going to charge you. You can stream as much as you like. If you use their shit, there's likely to be additional fees if you go above that data cap. They're allowed to throttle as well as like dictate new rules to what that cap means. We talked about something similar to this like last week with Amazon potentially looking to maybe step into like the movie theater industry, right? Like let's say Amazon were to buy AMC. I think the same thing would happen there, where it's like Amazon Prime original films or movies showing on Amazon Prime, or like distribution companies that like feature their film through Amazon will be allowed into theaters owned by Amazon, but there might be a higher price to pay for a ticket from like a Marvel or Disney or MGM or Paramount. So I think this gives a picture of like what's to come when there are no rules, whether with net neutrality or like in the film industry, if Amazon is allowed to buy a
yeah.
movie theater.
Yeah, and we talked about this at length when we talked about we did a whole sort of series on the streaming wars, right? The great streaming wars of 2020, right? And how critical that was going to be to the like the rest of how we take in content, one of the things that I voiced at that time was saying exactly this. And we don't like to pat ourselves on the back here at the Fade Podcast, and yet we do. Very much so. Yeah.
Yet we do.
And so I remember saying that this is the one thing that people aren't looking at that's going to affect everybody and is going to be a massive fucking problem, right? Across all political spectrums, I don't give a fuck who you are going to hate this, right? Because if you're not an AT&T customer, now what that means is that okay, I can't watch Netflix without worrying about my data caps. And if I pass over that data caps, that means I'm going to have to pay more. So either Netflix or Amazon or whoever pays more to AT&T in order to like get them not to do that, or they just front that bill to the customer. But this is all at AT&T's benefit, right? That there's no reason why HBO Max should be held without data caps and that Netflix should be, right? They should just be both even. You either should have data caps for both or data caps for none of them, right? Or at least, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm conflicting that in my lack of tech understanding of exactly what's happening. But either way, it's fucked up. And it definitely shouldn't happen. And it's going to affect us all in this case of, and especially if we all start cutting the cord a lot more, right? If a lot of people are relying sort of wholly on the internet, then this issue is going to be so much more critical, because if you're getting your TV not just through cable but through the internet, then that means that okay, you thought, oh, I could watch Netflix, or I could watch Hulu, or I could watch Amazon Prime, or I could watch all this stuff and not have to worry about anything else. Okay, well, now that's not the case. Now you're going to have to pay extra in order to view those things if you want to look at them the same, like in HD, if you want to look at them without being like fucking throttled down and shit. And it's a massive fucking issue. And a complete side note, but doesn't Ajit Pai have the most punchable face you've ever fucking seen in your life? I'm not, my mom raised me well, and she raised me not to hate anybody. But I'm afraid that I've never met Ajit Pai and probably never will. We've never crossed paths. But he just looks like somebody who I just want to punch. He just, him in the stupid fucking Reese's cup that he's fucking using, the oversized piece of shit that he's holding.
Yeah, this guy definitely looks like an asshole. There is one other little excerpt from the article that I want to mention here. So recently, an AT&T executive had said in this publication that the reason how AT&T is able to do this, or how HBO Max is able to do this, is that HBO Max, which is owned by AT&T, is using AT&T's sponsored data services, right? Which essentially allows companies to pay AT&T to excuse their services from AT&T's data cap. Now, again, HBO Max is owned by AT&T, so HBO Max is essentially using this sponsored data program for free, right? Whereas a company like Netflix or like Hulu would have to pay AT&T for that service. The only companies that are using this AT&T sponsored data service are DirecTV, Uverse, and this other thing called Fullscreen, which are also owned by AT&T. So AT&T is basically creating rules for themselves, right? They're like, we've got this sponsored data program that all of our companies are using, and through that program, we're going to ignore data caps. And for other companies like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon to use that service where their caps will be ignored, they're going to have to pay us more, right? So either the customers pay for additional fees, or Marvel or Disney or whatever is going to be able to buy into the service and they can pay us. But either way, AT&T is kind of rigging the game so they get paid either way. Either the users are going to have to pay, or the companies are going to have to buy into the service. This is somewhat of a monopoly, or not that AT&T is the only service provider, but they're rigging the game.
Well, it's not that they're the only service provider, but it is a case where now everybody's going to be going to their neutral corners. So if you're an ISP, if you're somebody who owns, the the ability for, and then what's worse is if you're an internet service provider, well, now whether you own a Netflix or whether you own a Hulu, who gives a shit, right? You're going to be charging for everybody. So if those companies don't pay up, then you're going to throttle their services. And so somebody's going to be paying for that. Either the customer is going to be paying in order to be able to see fucking Netflix or Hulu or whatever the case is, or the company's going to be paying for it. Either way, you're going to be getting money on top of what people are already paying you for the actual service itself. And so it's insanity. And I don't understand. I think one of the things that the ways that I'm on right now is just like, yo, we as people, we tend to like give power up like this, and just like it just happens in the middle of the night, and then we're just all just like, whatever, you know. And then we only react when it actually affects like the thing that we want. Like, so when somebody goes on to Netflix and it's not fucking working for them, they're going to be wondering, oh, what the fuck is going on? And then they find out, oh shit, all this shit happened and net neutrality is a thing. And then, they're going to go down a rabbit hole of like how this ended up being, but it's just like, yo, we can do something about it now, and of course it's a little late since, AJPI and the FCC's, it is what it is. But yo, we can get Trump the fuck out of there in order to, at the very minimum, deal with this fucking issue, right? Like everybody can get on it on board with this, like that this is fucked up and that we don't want this to be the case, right? There isn't a single person, I think, a single like person who's on any end of this political spectrum that's like, yeah, this seems like a good idea. Like, no, this is a bad idea for everybody. so yeah. Yeah.
So you know what I think. It's either going to be Joe Biden or Trump, right? Joe Biden, if he wins the election, which I hope he does, not because I love Joe Biden, I'm a huge Joe Biden supporter, just because I know he's less corrupt than Donald Trump, right? And I think that's a fair start. But there's just so much stupid shit to undo, right? I think Trump has spent the majority of his presidency trying to undo anything Obama accomplished or tried to do. And Joe Biden or whoever, Joe Biden, if he wins the presidency, is going to have to do a lot of the dumb shit that Trump undid or that Trump did. And I don't know if he can fix all of them, like at least like within his first term, right? There's net neutrality. There's trying to like get, and obviously COVID-19 didn't help. There's trying to get employment rates back up. There's, financial different crises that are happening in a lot of different industries. So whoever steps into the office next is going to have a big job to do. And I wonder where net neutrality is going to be on that list.
Yeah. I would have to say it has to be towards the top, because in order to get information, it's not just about watching videos and shit. It's about actual like access to information. And so if you limit people's ability to do that, well, all right, well, that's the entire game, right? If you limit people's ability to like look shit up and find shit out for themselves, well, now you can create whatever fucking narrative you want to create, right? So if you're a conservative administration, now you can, throttle all of the liberal sites. If you're a liberal site, well, now you can throttle all the conservative sites and let your shit run rampant. It's a fucked up thing for everybody, and it's critical that we all have access to information and access to the shit that we need and want, and so I think it might not be at the top of the list, but it's definitely like in the top 5-6 things that he should do first thing as soon as he gets into office. And I don't know how it all shakes loose as far as like, how whether he has to put together, appoint people to the FCC and all that other stuff. I don't know how the fuck that shit happens, but all I know is this shit needs to happen, and it needs to happen fucking quick. Otherwise we're all fucked. Let's jump into our last story here.